Panzer V, also known as the Panther, was first introduced in 1942 and served till the very end of the war. It was a medium tank that had good armour, armament and manoeuvrability, the golden triangle in tank terms, and could be argued was the first true main battle tank, and is one of the greatest tanks of World War II. It was specifically designed to counter more modern tanks like the T-34, and it was specialised in the destruction of enemy tanks and vehicles more so than other Panzers. It came in several variants, the D, A and G, that being the correct order, as this time the Germans didn't follow the alphabet it seems, and it also had vehicles based off its design, such as the Panther with its 8.8cm main gun, and in total 5,984 Panthers were produced by the end of the war. The armour of the Panther was different to the standard German tanks, mainly that it had large amounts of sloped armour ranging from 16mm to 80mm. The Panther's frontal armour was actually better than that of the Tiger's, and the sloping of it allowed the weight to be kept a lot lower. But even though the front armour was strong, the sides were a maximum of 40mm, meaning the Panther crews were instructed to keep their front armour towards the enemy as much as possible, as unlike the Tiger, which was a heavy breakthrough tank, the Panther did not have the thick armour on all sides to take shots from the side like the Tiger did. The Panther also had some interesting armour features such as Zimmersmith anti-magnetic paste to stop magnetic mines being placed on the tank, but only the Germans rarely used magnetic mines, so this was kind of a waste, but still very cool. It was also eventually armed with 4mm Panzerschützen side skirts, armour, added to protect the side of the hull and the tracks and wheels from light anti-tank weapons, though the crews complained these were easily ripped off by bushes and rubble, which was extremely annoying as the Panther crews regularly had to bound across this type of terrain as they moved across the battlefield. The armament of the Panther was the real jewel in the crown for this tank. It had a 7.5cm high-velocity KWK 42 L70 main gun. This monstrous weapon could penetrate the front of a T-34 at over 1,000 metres away, and it was a true tank killer, having even better penetration than the mighty 88mm gun mounted on the Tiger. There was one drawback to this weapon though, as due to its very high velocity, the shells had to be reinforced, meaning less space inside for high explosives, meaning the high explosive rounds were weaker than that of other 7.5cm main guns. Also to note, there are stories that early in the Panther's development, men stood too close to the end of the barrel when firing and suffered injury or death due to the extreme pressure produced. As with most German tanks, it also had a coaxial MG34 machine gun and a hull-mounted MG34 machine gun, at first using a simple letterbox style opening in the hull, but as this was seen as a massive weakness, it was later replaced with a ball-mounted MG34 machine gun. The mobility of the Panther was very impressive for a tank weighing 44.8 tonnes, with the A and D variants achieving a maximum speed of 34 miles per hour, and the G variant 28.5 miles per hour due to its increased weight. This made the Panther a very quick and mobile tank, and it had a very good cross-country capabilities due to its wide tracks and large interleaved road wheels, which resulted in lower ground pressure. But its reliability was a different story. It was plagued with engine and transmission issues, also with many problems with the gearbox, which resulted with 50% of the earlier variants being broken before they even entered the battlefield. And some mechanical issues like the fuel pump resulted in the Panther actually catching fire. These issues were eventually addressed, but only by 1944, which as we know was a bit late to change Germany's fortunes. Some Panther G variants from September 1944 were equipped with an infrared searchlight and a scope effective up to 600 metres. Yes, the Panther had night vision. This was an amazing advantage and was truly ahead of its time. But how did the Panther fare in combat? Well, on January 9th, 1943, the first Panthers arrived in the field and the crews began their training. But mechanical problems were plaguing the Panther and it was poorly received. But nonetheless, their combat ability was impressive, as when the Panther worked, it worked very well. The first major engagement was Operation Citadel at the Battle of Kursk. The Panther fared well with 267 kills claimed, but a loss of 144, with many being irreparable, this due to the fact that the heavily fortified and mined Kursk battlefield was a death trap, especially for tanks. But as the Panther continued its service on the Eastern Front and mechanical reliability improved, their effectiveness grew massively, with the Russian forces fearing the Panther as much as the Tiger. But there were some very odd uses of the Panther. One such one, thanks to Hitler himself, was sending 60 Panthers with no engines or transmissions to be dug into the Leningrad front, supported by 10 working Panthers and infantry and AT support. A waste of Panthers, if you ask me. One amazing feat by the Panther was once that they had their infrared night vision gear fitted, they were able to do nighttime attacks with a combination of mechanical issues being fixed and now veteran crews. After time served in the tanks, the Panther unleashed hell on the Russians, causing heavy losses all over the Eastern Front, which at this time resided in Poland. and caused the Russians to have to divert key forces to deal with this nighttime threat. In the Western Front, as the Allies launched D-Day, the Panther joined German forces in attempting to drive the Allies back into the sea. The Panther had a mixed time, as even though it could easily punch through all Allied tanks on the Western Front, it did struggle with the upgunned British tanks and in time the American tanks after their initial first few months. The terrain, especially blockage, didn't actually help the Panther as much as other tanks, as its long barrel would stick out revealing itself, and with its massive width compared to some other medium tanks meant it couldn't move down many of the narrow streets. It also had poor round vision when it was in the blockage, meaning anti-tank crews could easily ambush it. This combined with Allied air superiority hampered the Panther's killing ability. Even with these tough odds, under well-trained crews, and especially in open terrain, the Panther could annihilate any of the Allied Western tanks, and it became feared for its tank-killing abilities. There was an exceptionally crafty use of 5 Panthers in the Battle of the Bulge. They were disguised as American M10 tank destroyers with the help of a few welded-on plates and a new paint job, and they snuck into the US rear lines and created chaos. They eventually neutralised, but it was a terrifying surprise for the US forces. In Italy, the Panther was deployed, as were some Panther turret pillboxes. Even though this mountainous terrain didn't favour tanks, when positioned well the Panther was lethal, as due to the terrain Allied forces found it difficult to flank them, meaning they had to contend with the strong front armour of the Panther. There were even plans for the Italians to build their own Panther, but this never transpired, as Italy was ill prepared for World War II as more of a hindrance than a help most of the time. In conclusion, the Panther was a formidable tank, and once its mechanical issues were solved, it was one of the best tanks of World War II. And even though it entered the war fairly late, it left its mark on the men who crewed it and the ones who faced its wrath. And when used in the right terrain by veteran crews, no tank was safe from its monstrous main weapon. And I think we can all agree it's probably one of the best looking tanks of World War II, as it had such amazing kind of slopes and design. It really, really is a beauty. Anyway, thank you for watching everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic evening.